Just so you know, the idea of the evening, we have a very short kind of presentation, like 5 or 10 minutes, just to get the conversation, the setting going. But it's not supposed to be like us doing a big program. In fact, it's kind of the opposite. We're hoping that in this open forum style that you guys talk, and we've got a few questions we want to know. And while we know a lot of the book stuff as students, we don't have the social history, we don't have all the great stories that go with the, the who was the president and all these facts that their minds are just full of. And so this is more of a night for us to learn than necessarily for you. I'm sorry if you were misled when you came, but it's just a time for you to kind of share, in particular, Pewaukee history during the Great Depression. But if it goes into other areas, that's fine too. We want to start with a few questions, and Morgan's going to come up here and ask a few questions, and then our group of guys is going to ask a few questions as well. But I have a question for the students, and they didn't expect this. So,
we actually, excuse me?
Yes. I just met somebody, and his name is Ernie. And Ernie asked me to ask you to guess how old he is, because he lived through the Great Depression. So it's your task to figure out how old Ernie is.
Oh, man.
You've got my team. History. That was my subject. I just loved history. Now I'm going to stand here and look me over really good. You do it Okay. Well, let's see how smart you are. How old do you think I am? 72.
27.
What?
27.
How old were you during the Great Depression?
Pardon? Oh. I don't hear very well, so let's speak up a little louder.
How old were you during the Great Depression?
I was 1 year old. I'll give you a little hint. I'm above 80.
Yeah, me too.
Are you 89?
What?
89?
86?
90.
84.
83, 85.
87.
I'll give you 90.
90.
Oh, God.
94.
92.
93. Now we can ask questions.
How do you stay so young?
Married a white woman.
I was telling Ernie that he was born the same year as my grandfather. My grandfather was born on Christmas Day, 1921, and you said March of 21, right? All right, so Morgan?
Wait, what is it? Oh, yeah, she's got to stand straight.
She's got to stay.
That's the rule.
I'm a dangerous speaker. Okay, so raise your hands for if you were born in Pewaukee. You got solid 3. 4. Okay. So have you lived in Pewaukee or the area your entire life?
You lived in Pewaukee your entire life?
So who lived during the Great Depression? And then did you attend Pewaukee School District? We know your pain. Were you employed in Pewaukee? Anybody? Alright, I should probably stop before I get yelled at.
All right. That's all right. I guess I got it.
Alright, so we're just going to do a brief introduction, briefly cover some of what we learned so far, and just do a brief review so we kind of set the scene for our talk tonight. At first, we got pop quiz. I'm sure you weren't expecting that. All right, so who was president during the Great Depression? When it began, I'm sorry. Very good.
Roosevelt, the big one.
Roosevelt was the big one. Wow. Smart on This is his.
What do Herbert Hoover's RFC and AAA stand for?
Anything? Anybody?
It was a nation of some kind.
It's the Reconstruction Finance. Agricultural.
Third question. What was the day that the stock market crashed called?
Black Friday.
Close.
Close. Black Tuesday. Close.
So, what happened in Oklahoma and some other western states while the Great Depression went on? The Dust Bowl.
Yeah.
Very good.
And what constitutional amendment repealed prohibition during the Great Depression?
Looking for the number.
21.
Close. A little lower. A little lower. A little lower.
22.
A little bit lower.
Only one was prohibition repealed after the
33.
Yeah. So first I'm going to start off with a little brief Great Depression in the 1920s America. We were just getting out of World War I, I'm sure most of you know, but we went back to this Monroe Doctrine, which said, United States will stay in that Western Hemisphere, Europe, you stay in your Eastern Hemisphere. And it was kind of like this era where we were reconstructing our nation and staying out of entangling alliances and making sure that we didn't get another world war. It was also nicknamed the Roaring Twenties for two main reasons: its economic prosperity and its social and cultural revolutions. You get a lot of Republicans, actually all three presidents during the 1920s were Republicans, so you have a lot of big businesses starting to grow and the government supporting them. Some of the social and cultural revolutions that you have, the Harlem Renaissance with a bunch of black movements in the 1920s, and flappers, which was another women's fashion revolution. You have an increase in a lot of women's rights during this time too, as I'm sure many of you know. But the three presidents during this time were Harding, Coolidge, and Hoover. Harding's main thing was the Washington Naval Conference. Coolidge's didn't really do much, but he was in big favor of laissez-faire, and he was also part of the Teapot Dome scandal, which was a big scandal during that time. And then you obviously have Hoover, who was president during the start of the Great Depression in 1929 when the stock market crashed, and then they implemented some of the things that Matt Thurman will talk about later.
Alright, so some causes of the Great Depression. One of the biggest ones is overproduction and underconsumption. Like, we were just making too much stuff and there wasn't enough people to use it. And because we were staying away from Europe, we couldn't export all of that extra food that we were making. So it just went to waste and prices skyrocketed. And then another, the reason why the stock market crashed was called buying on margin. So you get a loan from the bank and then go play the stock market with that money, which today is illegal because that's what it caused the stock market to crash.
Yeah, in the stock market, when everybody had loans from the bank would take out money from other people's accounts and give it to them, so then when people were trying to finally withdraw their money from the bank once the stock market started to crash, the bank didn't have any money to give anybody, so big shortage in people's bank accounts.
And well, to help alleviate the economy during this time, Herbert Hoover initiated his trickle-down economics, which basically gave a large sum of money to large businesses, and over time they would distribute the money downward, and this created some problems in the lower societies of like the economy. And then you see a lot of shanty towns, which they call Hoovervilles at this time, where a lot of people living in poverty as the economy is not getting distributed all the way to the lower income families. And then following Hoover, you see Franklin Roosevelt with his New Deal, which we'll go into a little more detail in a couple slides.
So Roosevelt was our president from 1933 to 1945. He was our 32nd president, I believe. He was actually a big switch in American society because we had those 3 Republican presidents in Harding, Coolidge, and Hoover. And then when the stock market crashed, the American people started to lose faith in those Republican presidents, so they needed to switch to the Democratic side with FDR. He was our only 3-term president in the United States because Washington made that idea about 2 terms max, and FDR, after World War I started, it's kind of idealized that it might be too big of a switch at the time to switch presidents during a war like that. He suffered from polio, so it was extremely difficult for him to speak anywhere public speaking because he couldn't stand for very long periods of time, if any at all. As I said, he was president during the Great Depression and World War II, and he formulated and pioneered a New Deal, which was one of the main reasons why he got the presidency. He ran on the platform that he would get us out of the Great Depression, and all of his policies and his new ideals would be structured in the form of the New Deal, which we'll talk about right now.
Well, the New Deal, it had 3 main purposes, all starting with ours. There was relief, there was recovery, and there was reform. And the government spent millions and millions of dollars in certain organizations to try to relieve and recover and reform the nation at this time.
So you get like the CCC doing work, like reforesting. Devil's Lake State Park in Wisconsin is a good example. They, cut up the steps and planted the trees that are there today.
You got the TVA, which was the Tennessee Valley Authority, which at first only supplied power to the Tennessee Valley area, but after Roosevelt implemented the New Deal, it expanded their operations greatly and creating more jobs and eventually creating more power.
And PWA and making dams, pretty much any sort of large public works project, just trying to create jobs for people.
And got the WPA, the Works Project Administration, where they're trying to create public works for people.
You have the NRA, which is pretty much an extension of Social Security, pretty sure?
Businesses.
Businesses, sorry. So, those are some of your main New Deal programs.
How about CC camp?
What?
CC camp.
CCC? Yeah.
What does NRA stand for?
National Recovery Act.
Not National Rifle Association.
No.
All right, so then the Great Depression really started to end with the beginning of World War II. The mechanization that came along with World War II, turning car factories into tank factories and making how, as you can see, the Willow Run factory making thousands of planes every day for the war effort gave thousands upon thousands of people new jobs, and that mechanization brought pretty much America out of the Depression with all this government spending and just the need for workers. And now we could have a place to sell our grain, selling it to France and to our troops overseas.
You also have a great amount of soldiers leaving for the war, opening a lot of jobs, and that's when women started becoming too. So women's rights improved during this time too because of the lack of workers and the necessity for them during World War II. I think that's it for our presentation. Do you want to keep it up or just a great
That's
reference
great.
later?
I'll just turn it off.